Sometimes the hardest mission is when you have to adapt to a new role. From starting a first responder career to a new assignment to retirement, Greg Fernia is here to help. Greg is a retired special operations supervisor and a personal and professional development coach. He helps first responders and their families navigate transitions and challenges with purpose and clarity. Learn more at livingthegoodlifecoach.com. That's livingthegoodlifecoach.com. Law enforcement and government agencies struggle with parking citations, often because no one will pay them. Boots or other devices are costly, and they invite confrontation when implied and later removed by enforcing employees. With Tire Tag, you can avoid many hurdles and ultimately promote public safety and revenue collection. To learn more, visit tiretag.com. For a thorough conversation on how Tire Tag can help your agency and revenue collection, visit episode 204. That's 204. The views and opinions expressed by the host and guests of this show do not represent their employing agency, department, or organization. All information should be regarded as anecdotal, contextual, and educational, and should not be misinterpreted as legal or medical advice. Welcome to Blue Grit Radio, the podcast that explores making better cops for a better community. I'm your host, Eric Tung. I've been an active police officer since 2007. We will dive into the aspects of police culture, health and wellness, leadership, and mindset. You'll hear from experts not only from policing, but all industries as they relate to being our best with purpose, passion, and positivity. Join me as we share stories, lessons, and advice so we can all be better for ourselves, our teams, our families, and our communities. This is part 2 of a 2-part interview. If you didn't listen to part 1, make sure to go back an episode or so you don't miss any of the good stuff. All right, here we go. For what you guys have recognized, either personally or just with how you look at the job, to invite others to think about how you can ensure that you're being adaptable and flexible and able to evolve your perspective to evolve with the emergent needs and challenges of the role.
Yeah, if I could jump in really quick.
Yeah, please.
One of the things that I jumped on board with when I first promoted back in 2020 was I got onto our department's peer support program. And I saw a need there because I thought to myself, if something happened to me, who would I feel comfortable talking to? And at the time, it was a very short list. And so as I promoted and I started my first year, what I really wanted to focus on was being really authentic. And I was hoping that would build trust amongst my peers, amongst the people that I led. And I think over time that has proven to be really powerful because the people that I worked for have continued to come to me and talk to me. And they have said that they feel like they can be comfortable in talking to me and coming to me. And I think that authenticity has opened up levels of communication that probably historically haven't been around our agency. And I think that it allows me to get a perspective of what they're seeing and what they're feeling and what their struggles are. And that allows me as a sergeant, when we have our sergeants meetings or whatever, to bring up issues that maybe people wouldn't feel comfortable bringing forth. Because I know back when I started as a cop, I don't think the sergeants really wanted to hear what I had to say about how I was feeling about a certain thing, right? They just wanted me to go do some work and be quiet about it. And building those relationships with your people allows them to bring problems to you that it is your job to fix or to help them find resolutions to those problems. And so I think just that authenticity has been enormously powerful for me as sort of a mental shift from where I started in 2008 to now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's huge. Yeah. Officer, get back in your Crown Vic. I don't want to hear it, right? Dating ourselves.
Right.
The golden years, but for sure. And I love that nod to peer support, whether or not you wear the hat or you have the training, but that culture of peer support. Like, there's a part of me that wants all supervisors everywhere to go through peer support training for the awareness, like, because you might be that person's lifeline, like literally. And then in any smaller, non-life or death type of crisis, like, that's the person, if no one else, you should feel like is looking out for your best interest. And it doesn't mean they put the kid gloves on. It doesn't mean that they don't tell you bad news, because those things are absolutely intertwined with that as well. So thank you for that. Brian, why don't we go to you?
Yeah, Dave crushed it, but building relationships, going back to how you build credibility with these officers, those relationships that you mentor and foster carry pounds moving forward. So when you do have to have those tough conversations, or even the good conversations, when you need to steer somebody a little bit left or a little bit right, they're like, okay, I'm willing to take this constructive criticism because you've invested in me. Right. And that investment is not just work related. It goes back to what David was saying, which I've always honed in on, which is, these officers are human beings. These are men and women, their husbands, their wives, their sons, their daughters, their fathers, their mothers, and all that stuff comes first before being able to be a good police officer. So investing in your relationship with your officers and identifying, knowing when your officers' anniversaries are, knowing when your officers' birthdays are, knowing those personal details is important in building that credibility. So when the time does come and you do have to jam them up, because that's always, if they're pushing themselves and you're giving them enough rope to almost hang themselves, you need to be able to yard them back. And when you do, it's much easier to do so when you've already got that credibility, that they believe in you. They're like, hey, I don't know why Sarge is telling me this. I don't know why Sarge is all over me. I thought I was doing it the correct way, but I'm going to listen to him and I'll be comfortable asking questions later. Right. And I think for me, the open-mindedness of being a sergeant, being willing to not have all the answers and be okay with that. So if I tell my work group, hey, this is what we need to do, and they push back like, oh, hey, Sarge, that doesn't make total sense. Can we do it this way or can we do it that way? I need to be open-minded to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, that's a great idea. Let's do it that way. Or, hey, I'm not sure what the answer is, but then be timely in circling back and answering the question and closing that loop so they don't feel that their ideas or their thoughts or their concerns just out in no man's land where nobody cares. Right. So building that credibility, building those relationships definitely serves its good in growing and fostering that credibility.
Yeah,
One thing,
absolutely.
one thing, Brian, that I think that you hit on that was really powerful. You didn't quite get to what I was thinking, but it's okay for us as supervisors to admit that we're wrong too.
Mhm.
Oh, 100%.
Like you're
Yeah.
saying, oh, I'm not sure about that plan. And they could be 100% spot on. And the next day in briefing, it's on us to go like, hey, guess what? You were right. And I
Mhm.
was
Totally.
wrong.
Yeah, there's a lot of head nods for those that didn't get audible on that, but I actually wrote that down too. I wrote down humility and I don't know, and a couple of you hit on aspects of that earlier in the conversation. That's so huge, and as you continue to shift in your role, like you're not going to be the person that knows. Like the subject matter experts in some way are the people on the ground. They're doing the work every day, right? Their boots are getting dirty, and so that trust goes both ways, right? Like you develop credibility and trust to them, but then also like you gotta to continue to build it, you gotta accept it, right? When they're bringing you the bad news up, saying, "Hey, boss, we need this," it goes back to the earlier point of like removing barriers and challenges the best you can. Like we gotta trust their insight. And former Valley SWAT dude and leader Jeff Selig, like he put that out in a training I was at years ago. But yeah, we gotta trust those boots on the ground, the word that they're giving us. And the other point on some of the things with the relationship that Brian hit on, it reminded me of this point in shoot, what is it called? It's called this Bob Chapman book, Something Matters. Is it Everyone Matters? Something to that effect. But it's a corporate leadership book essentially. But it one of the points that he brings up is, would I want my kid to work here? And we all know like the archetype of cops being like, I don't want my kid to be a cop, blah, blah, blah. But like, let's just assume your kid is going to be a cop, or your grandkid or your neighbor kid that you grew up, or they grew up and you're mentoring them and you care deeply about them. Would you want them to work here with the things that you can control as leadership, as culture influencers? And if you say no, then I think the mirror should go back on us. Like, okay, like what are you doing about it? Like, what are you modeling to make it more the type of workplace where you would want them to work and where they feel supported and they have what they need to survive physically, emotionally, and so on? So, yeah, I just wanted to share that out for people to look more into. It's everybody matters. But David, let's go to you.
I'm going to echo both Dave and Brian here. Dave, you're 100% spot on in regards to peer support. there is probably no better way than that path to develop and establish that connection with people. And Brian, you hit the nail on the head in regards to, the constructive criticism piece. And when you're receiving the constructive criticism, it is a lot easier to take it when it comes from a position of love. And I had a teacher from one of my FBI leader classes. His name was Dave Boggs. Dave said, number one, love your people. And you have to care for your people, because that's what builds the point that you two gentlemen hit so poignantly on, and that's trust. Trust is everything. If your people don't trust you, then you're not in the right spot. And I mean, it goes back to, my whole goal is to, help foster and cultivate an environment of trust within the agency so that we can inspire everybody to achieve the goals that they want at work and away from work. But if they don't trust you, then where are you going with it? And that is the cornerstone of integrity, right? If you don't have the trust, you're not going to get anywhere with anybody. And being able to pull that aspect of it into both work and your relationships with your people, that's the key to, your success in the role of being a sergeant. And yeah, if you don't know the answer, man, I can't tell you the number of times. I don't know. Let's find out together. Or I don't have the answer. Let me go find out and we'll circle back to it. The worst thing you can do is to pretend that you know what you're doing and give bad information, and they act on it and something goes sideways. Heaven forbid someone gets hurt or worse, right? So in order to do that, it goes back to, the way that I looked at the way people do their job. When I first got promoted, I got promoted to the shift I was working at. So I had a lot of guys. All right, Sarge, this guy's doing it wrong. Well, what makes it wrong? Why is it wrong? Explain to me why you think it's wrong. Well, it's wrong because they're not doing it the way that you do it. That doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just their way of doing it, man. And I told people all the time, to this very day, look, there's 5 things you can't do. You can't break the law. You can't violate policy. And you can't violate someone's First, Fourth, or 14th Amendment constitutional rights. After that, it's really gray out there. Let them learn. Let them figure out their way and help to support them. And that's what's going to help you build that trust. It doesn't have to be done every once in a while. There are certain aspects of our job. It has to be done a certain way. It can only be done one way. But everything else, man, there's a lot of leeway in there in regards to how you can go about doing the job. And it doesn't make it wrong just because you wouldn't do it that way. And it goes back to what Dave and Brian were talking about. It comes back to building and fostering that environment of trust.
Absolutely. I said years ago, like well before any of the social media and podcast stuff, but contrary to the colors of our cars, policing is not a black and white. And, maybe cop haters would say like, oh, see, you're admitting like it's not, but it's not about that. It's about discretion. It's about context. It's about spirit of the law, right? It's about intent. And so with that, with the evolving times, seems faster and faster than ever, we got to adapt to that. We got to evolve. We have to be flexible and resilient. Man, we could keep going on for hours with your all's wealth of experience and insights. But I want to go around the room and see what is on your mind, kind of in bringing in summary or something that you wanted to add on in context of this conversation before we wrap. So first we'll go to Dave, and then also after that, tell folks if you have an online presence, and we have a mixture here, where people can find out more or get in touch with you. So let's go to Dave.
Yeah, Eric, I really want to just thank you for having me on, and I really appreciate the time talking with you guys about leadership. I think that having these open channels is one of those things that I can learn from my agency and I can learn from my experiences, but bouncing these ideas off of one another is enormously valuable for me, and I really appreciate the time talking with you guys. I think leadership is, like you just spoke on, is ever changing and ever evolving. I think anybody who was a police officer between 2020 and 2026 now has had to be extremely flexible and open-minded and humble about how we have changed our methods of policing and leading people. And we have brand new cops that I have to learn new ways to communicate with them and there's a lot, right? So you have to be very flexible and humble. And yeah, I think it will continue to evolve. And I think that's one of the earmarks of a good leader is just being flexible and open to change. And so I appreciate you guys. If I don't really have a huge social media exposure, but I do run a page called Meditation Through Misery, where me and some of my friends get together and we do really horrible fitness related things like running up and down hills. And last year we did a 24-hour assault bike challenge where we rode assault bikes for 24 hours. And just a couple of days ago, we ran for 12 hours straight. So if you're interested in doing something terrible like that, hit me up.
I think there's going to be a short list of people reaching out because
okay.
it's impressive. But yeah, props to you, man. Do hard things.
Yeah.
All right, Brian,
Thanks,
over to you.
I'll jump on that do hard things. I think leadership is not riding a bike. It's like once you become a leader, now you're a leader and you don't have to keep challenging yourself anymore, which is the complete opposite from the truth. Along with, as David said, adapting and learning how these officers communicate, act, and how you need to change. You need to be driving yourself for self-improvement, whether it's the Jocko books or whether it's leadership classes or awesome podcasts such as this to open your mind and be like, hey, there are other people out here vastly more talented than myself, leading and mentoring and coaching. I want to be like that person. You need to have a mentor or mentors that you strive and gravitate to be like, and then continue challenge yourself so you can grow, because the officers are growing. They're coming up. And as much as I want officers surpassing where I'm at, like that's my goal, is that servant leader. I want to continue that mentorship. I want to be that person's life coach, so to speak, throughout their career, where they can like, dang, I've promoted past Sarge, but I still lean on him for, hey, how'd you deal with this? Or how you have, I got this officer that's just, whatever it is, how did you deal with that? And then be able to give those helpful tips throughout. And you can't do that if you get comfortable in a role and just stay status quo and comfortable in that role. You got to keep challenging yourself. So again, like Dave said, I really appreciate the invite. I'm coming up here with you guys. It's very humbling and honoring, and I'd love to come back on in the future on some other topics or whatnot. So thank you.
Yeah, I love that. You guys are solid. For sure, there's so much more we could peel back in a lot of different directions for sure. And something you said, for sure, that mentorship piece, and sometimes that word gets thrown around a lot, but I think like concretely what has helped me is recognizing like it's not about having one mentor. Like don't put anyone on a pedestal, and then don't allow anyone to put yourself on a pedestal. There's not one way. There's so many ways. And so like assemble your mentorship resources, whether it's resources like Jocko, whether it's different podcasts, different peers, like people personally, or historical figures that are long gone, but you're still learning lessons from that, from them to develop yourself in a new, meaningful way. And yeah, with the hopes and trust that everyone listening, the younger generations, are going to surpass all four of us in what they're able to do with the job, because simply we're not going to be doing it, but also they're coming up in a world that they're going to have more, they're going to have their heels dug into the stirrups so much more than we can really grasp, because we're all, just past midway, and David's just a little bit ahead of us in that realm. So for sure, it is torch passing in that mentorship aspect. All right, David, let's go over to you to wrap things up.
Piggybacking on Brian and Dave, first and foremost, thank you very much, Eric. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to share this time with all of you guys. Learned an awful lot just through this conversation. And as Brian said, be more than happy to come back at a future time and talk about any other topic, because it's about giving back, right? And I would say for me, where I'm at right now in my career and in my life, that adaptability piece is all tied back to patience, right? I have to have the patience and understand that mistakes are going to happen. It's kind of like wearing the FTO hat again. I'm going to bring that back up. Mistakes are okay. They're going to happen. They're expected. You have to embrace the mistakes. The mistakes are the jagged rocks of the mountain you're trying to climb. There's that gets in your way, that causes a problem, you're never going to be able to ascend. So embrace your mistakes. No one climbs a smooth mountain, and be adaptable. And you're right, Eric. This next generation of people coming into the profession, I get a little bit of a benefit because they're all the same age as my adult children. So I've traveled this road with them before, and I can relate to dealing with them. So I kind of wear that hat sometimes, and that's actually a nickname moniker they gave me when I came down to Louisiana and I went to the academy again. You know, 24 years on the job, and I was Papa Dave. You
Mhm.
know, I was that father figure, and sometimes that's what people need. And like Brian said, some of these people, they're going to blow past us on the promotional aspect. Doesn't mean you stop being there for them. It just means that if they're still reaching out to you, take a bow. You did something right. That's huge. That is absolutely huge. I got a text message from one of my very first FTOs 2 days ago. This man's forgotten more about law enforcement than I'm ever going to know. And he's still today checking in on me to make sure everything's okay because of the bad ice weather we got going on down here in Louisiana.
Mhm.
Just reached out to make sure I'm still okay. That is leadership personified right there.
Yeah, I
I
love
hadn't
that.
worked with this guy in almost 20 years, and he's still reaching out. So be that guy.
That's legit. Yeah, and you can find David on LinkedIn, and the spelling of his name will be in the
Right.
show notes in the title. So
Forgot to mention. Yeah. You can find me on LinkedIn. That's my platform. That's the only social media that I have. But I'm definitely on there. So if you want to hit me up, by all means, reach out, friend me. Let's make some connections and make some conversations and shared contributions.
yeah, I love that. And just to expand a little bit on what you just said, take that opportunity, right? Like, we don't do it for the validation, but I mean, there's probably so many people listening and everyone on this call that you've had those kind of heartfelt texts or those random like little nudges or a phone call or a conversation like, hey, back when, like, thanks for that. Um, I know it means so much to me. So, for those listening, like, think about who some of your mentors have been, and just take a moment when you're not driving, perhaps like shoot him a little text saying, hey, like, think about my career and thanks for paving the way, because we can recognize we didn't really talk about bad bosses. I know we all have the same archetypes in our heads of like bad supervisors, bad bosses, but think about all the ones that really stood out, really set the pace for what you model now. And then also, like, check in with those people that you help come up, like a little nudge of like, hey, I see how you're doing, good job, proud of you, like that can go a long way. So I sincerely appreciate all three of you for coming on. I knew it was one I've been looking forward to a long time, as far as like the scope of having sergeants on. And then as I got to learn more about like two of you that I didn't know particularly well, I was getting more and more excited and knew that this would cover a lot of really meaningful ground. So thank you all so much. I know the listeners will get so much from it. Listeners, make sure you share it out because this is gold. Hey, Grit Nation, I got a couple things I'm really excited to share with you. The first is that the free newsletter, is now live. All you got to do is go to bluegritwellness.com to subscribe. It is basically a summary of everything good and gritty for the week, including some exclusive content specifically on the newsletter. That'll include wellness information, nutrition, things that you ask, Q&A, as well as updates about Blue Grit, offerings, news, things that'll help you out. Next order of business. For years, I've been asked what kind of nutritional supplements I use because I've been into learning about health, nutrition, fitness for so long. And for years, I landed on NutriCost. And it's only a recent thing that I've been an affiliate, but now I get to pass the savings on to you. So if you go to NutriCost.com, use code BlueGrit, that's just BlueGrit, you get 10% off. Literally just a couple items, you get free shipping. And the reason why I found it was because it was always the best quality for the best value. So I always recommend people look at the ingredient list, look out for things like sucralose. It has the lowest amount of unnatural ingredients if you're looking for that kind of thing, whether it's your whey protein isolate, which I toggle on and off of, or organic vegan protein to cut down on different chemicals that I just generally like to avoid. It's not just protein, it's creatine and minerals, vitamins, things like L-theanine and magnesium, which I use regularly to help my nervous system power down. It aids rest and recovery, promoting better sleep. So whatever it is, go to NutriCost.com and you can just enter the code BlueGrit. to get your 10% off. Thank you for tuning into another episode of Blue Grit Radio. As always, support this community by subscribing, giving us a 5-star review, and following, liking, and sharing posts on Blue Grit Wellness on Instagram. You can reach me there or email me at bluegritwellness@gmail.com. Be well and stay gritty.